I had to recognize that God was not through with me yet, you know? Even though I'm in the last quarter of this thing we call life, but He was not through with me yet. And it has been placed on my heart to address the juvenile delinquency issue in our community, and we've given a lot of thought to it. We named this entity New Path Campus of Restoration and Restoring. And why was a New Path came to me? New Path came to me as a name because many of these young lads are following an old path of life which has led them and continues to lead them into self-destruction, leads them into the criminal justice system. It's been forecasted that for every 1 in 3 African American male, they will end up getting involved in the criminal justice system. You all already know that mass incarceration has been phenomenally successful in America for those who made money on it. But it's been very painful for those of us who've looked at the growth of the prison population and how many of us populate it. That, what I call school to prison cycle, must be broken. So New Path has several initiatives as part of it. It is more than mentoring. It is more than mentoring. Part of our vision involves building 2 campuses. Some people refer to them as a boot camp. We will have options on a 40-acre piece of land in Fraser, options on about 50 acres in Millington. On every piece of parcels that we buy, there must be a minimum of 40 acres. Why? Pardon? 40 acres. So when we started telling the real estate guy, they said, "Where I got it?" I said, "Look, I gotta have a minimum of 40 acres, okay? Everything I am doing that's coming to me from a vision has a historical, cultural basis that all of these boys that will be on these campuses is getting back at what Rosalind was saying earlier. They've got to know who they are, okay? Where they are in time and space, okay? So the minimum 40 acres is part of our story. Okay? So on these campuses, there will not be the typical razor wire facilities like prisons. We will build state-of-the-art, like barrack dorms, okay, with all kinds of amenities, centers for family engagement, okay? We will have a medical complex. Many of these boys, you may not know this, in fact, it's been documented, almost 50% of them have some features of being abused. They've had early, I guess what they call it now, adverse childhood experiences that have caused them to have deviant behavior. It goes undetected. If it's undetected, it's untreated. So on these campuses, we will have what is called a juvenile assessment center, where there will be a trained psychiatrist, psychologists, social workers, and all of that. That's one component of New Path. Many of these facilities now, what they do is they engage in punishment. Punishment. That's why the recidivism rate is still high. In the New Path method, we will focus on education and rehabilitation and reentry into the American society. On these campuses, we will have an array of vocational, technical programs. Not every youngster is geared to go to college, but what we want to deeply embed in them is that every man should be prepared to make a living. It's either his or her business, or it's gainfully employment, or it's to become an entrepreneur. But the goal is to be prepared to be economically sufficient in the American economy. So we're devoted to do that. You've heard of the campaign 10,000 black men stepping up and reaching out. I've received some criticisms about that. I knew I would. And if you know my style, criticism doesn't bother me. I'm moving forward. And why? Why 10,000 black men? Okay? Remember what I told you. Everything I'm doing, it has some historical, cultural basis to it. Okay? So God gave me the vision to reflect on Gideon. People ask, well, where did you pull 10,000? I didn't pull 10,000 out the hat. If you will remember, when, I don't know how many biblical orientations we have here, but I don't want to tell you the whole story. But when the angel was sent, Gideon, to be the mighty warrior, because there was a lot of idol worshipers of false gods, okay? So Gideon was selected to be the mighty warrior. And so he had the challenge of amassing thousands of saints or warriors to help him. And he started out with 32,000. But after the first cut, he ended up with 10,000. And God sent an angel to him and said, that's too many. How many of you know the story? He said, that's too many. And he said, well, how will I know? So he took them to the water. And he said, this is how you separate them. There'll be those that will lap the water like the tongue of a dog. And there'll be those that will kneel and bow. That's how he ended up and made the separation. And Gideon ended up with 300. And that's all he needed. And God gave him the victory. Now, so when I asked for 10,000, I knew the naysayers would say, oh, he must be dreaming. Can't get 10,000 black men to step up and to step out. But we're going to achieve that number. In 2 weeks from now, you're going to see how we're going to do it, because they don't believe they can do it either. But they can do it. You're going to see how we're going to do it in 2 weeks. But in reality, I don't need 10,000. And just like Gideon, you'll have thousands that will start off with you, but only a few dedicated soldiers will stay on that battlefield. Okay? So there's a lot of messages in the 10,000 and in the 300. I just thank God that still at this point in my life, I'm still enjoying good health, still have the energy and the passion. I was interviewed yesterday, and it was a commercial appeal. So the guy said, why are you doing this? He said, you could retire. I said, that's true. I said, but I'm going to be very honest with you, and it's not self-serving, and I'm going to tell you the same thing. I wish there was someone or some persons. This may seem self-serving, but I wish I could look out in my community and see leadership with vision, with boldness, with strength, and with courage to move a community forward. I've looked wide, I've searched long, and I couldn't see it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I couldn't see it. And I couldn't sit on the sideline and not do something about it. When I stated a couple of weeks ago, and some of you may differ with me, because you got to have a broader context to understand why I said that the crime problem is a black problem. When I made that statement, I was not suggesting that we are born criminals. No. That was not even in my thinking pattern. was simply wanting to convey, based on the demographics in Memphis, it's the same thing in Chicago. In Memphis, last year, we had 228 homicides. 200 of those homicides, the perpetrators and the victims were of one race. 200 of the 228. And many of those homicides, some were gang-related, some are because of domestic violence, and some are just downright pathological, deviant behavior against members of our own race. Some of my distractors want to take me back, Rosalind, to how we got here. And I responded to them, I know how we got here. You don't have to tell me about slavery. You don't have to tell me about the hundreds of years of racial segregation and discrimination. I lived a lot of those. Okay, so you don't have to tell me about that. What is unacceptable to me is to accept the premise that because one is poor, that is an excuse to rob, to steal, and to hate your brother and your sister such that their lives do not matter. There are millions of poor people that do not rob, they do not steal, and they do not kill. I know about the structural challenges we have. I know about generational poverty because I'm first generation in my family to break out of it. Now my children are doing well. My grandchildren, Rodney's second son just been admitted to Stanford. The other boys going to University of Miami. My son, all my kids are graduated from college. Rodney's an MBA from Harvard. My mother and father never finished high school. So we were the second family in our South Memphis neighborhood to break out of poverty. The Tribble family was the first in mine. The other 8 out of 10, they didn't make it. Are you following me? How do we break the generational poverty cycle? It's a great challenge for us. And we got to do it methodically. And we're not going to reverse this situation or our human condition overnight. It didn't get here like we are now overnight. And we're not going to solve it overnight. We got to get fundamentally at the root causes. And Rosalind, we got to go back to what I say in the old days. We got to give these kids some real identity. And when I said black males, I was not discriminating against whites. I was not discriminating against women. And let me tell you why I said black males only. And I've been getting some pushback from that. And this may be my own narrow thinking. I firmly believe, and it's similar to the rite of passage, I firmly believe that where we are today, it takes a strong, moral, secure black man to put his hands on a black boy to help to shape him and to mold him to become a responsible black man. Not being racist. A white man can't live my life, can't share what it's like to be who you are and to come through. That black man should be able to do that and to prepare that boy to live in American culture, wherever he wants to be, and to know who he is and what it takes to be an honorable man. We have to do that. Now, I was fortunate. I didn't have a dad in the house. My grandmother has amazing strength, and my mother. And we made it. We made it. I came from a matriarchal family pattern. But the vast majority of these boys are fatherless. They don't have strong men putting their hands on them. That's what this mentoring program is really all about. Thank you all for allowing me just to participate.